Welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq. Joining us for this segment, we have Dana Diaria. She's the Co-Chief Investment Officer at Envestnet PMC to discuss the repercussions Russia has to returns and gas prices as well as ESG strategies. Dana, it's great to see you again. Welcome back to Trade Talks.
Thank you. Great to be here.
You got it. And how has the Russian-Ukraine conflict impacted Russian stocks and ETFs?
Yeah, it's been quite a wild ride. We of course have the Russian stock market closed now, frozen. Russian stocks are frozen for trading in many cases, and of course ETFs that are following and holding these stocks are now having to respond. There are a few out there, and some of them are changing how they're. At least one of them is changing how it's doing creates and redeems. One has actually stopped all new creates. So it's really kind of an unprecedented situation to a certain extent. The interesting thing I'll add about it, though, is that ETFs play a really vital role in terms of setting, or excuse me, not setting, but providing a price, and they still, to a certain extent, are doing that.
How does this affect presidential approval ratings, and really, who gets the blame at the end of the day?
Yeah, it's a great question. Certainly Putin is going to take the vast majority of the blame, I think, goes without saying. But interestingly, energy, gas prices are highly correlated with presidential approval ratings, with US presidential approval ratings. And surveys kind of are suggesting that Biden will take some of the hit on this too, right? For not having been able to avoid it. So I do think, and particularly we're now seeing, of course, oil is just skyrocketing the price there. If this continues to impact the American consumer, Biden will probably take some hit from this as well.
And could ESG strategies be under pressure as a result of Russia? Because now we really do understand the importance of, the oil and natural gas flow, at least for continuity while we're still using those commodities.
Yes, and I think this is a stress test for ESG investing, right? And this notion that we want to transition, even to a potentially a net zero economy, but that's going to be a messy, complicated transition. And to a certain extent, you could argue that Biden has empowered Putin, right? Not intentionally, but Putin, of course, knows the leverage that he has. He understands where he stands in terms of the need for natural gas, for oil, that there are a lot of companies that are needing to divest some of their assets because it doesn't meet with our ESG standards. So I think if you're investing in ESG, the answer is not withdrawal, but the answer is to understand this is not going to be an overnight thing that we're going to switch off fossil fuels. How do I want to work toward the future that I envision? One way I would say, Jill, renewables, investing toward thematics that invest in renewables help us make that transition. A lot of sustainable funds will also recognize the same thing we're talking about here, and they won't divest entirely from energy fossil fuel stocks. They will, pick the best of that group, the ones that are really trying to be forward thinking and help the transition.
Right. So do you think the sustainable energy movement overshot itself? Can they coexist together, or does it have to be us versus them?
I love the question, because I think that people are going to look at it that way, and I hope that we can recognize that it's just not going to be easy to do this. It's going to be messy, and so to a certain extent, it probably does appear like it did, right? That we're not ready for this massive transition. We're not ready to shut off these fossil fuel sources. At the same time, you have an argument that no, this is our opportunity to say, hey, let's rip the Band-Aid to a certain extent on some of this. So it's going to be messy and complicated, and it's going to overshoot and then step back, et cetera. But hopefully it encourages investment in areas that are going to get us to that next step.
All right, Dana, we appreciate the insight as always. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.